And our next speaker, beyond writing books that we're going to possibly give away, but he takes great pleasure in crushing his kids at Fortnite. Please welcome Adnan.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. And yes, I do crush my kids at Fortnite. I had the first win, and I also play Roblox and Minecraft. So thank you, everyone, for inviting me. My name is Adnan Masood. I'm a machine learning engineer, an architect, and a thought leader in this space. I'm also a Microsoft regional director. By the way, that's more like it's an honorary title. So I don't represent Microsoft. So anything I say is not Microsoft's point of view. It's point of view in the general sense, but it's not like I'm not a spokesperson for Microsoft. I'm actually a chief architect for AI and machine learning. My role is actually at the intersection of academia and industry. So combining the best of academia. So one of the things like generative AI, for example, it has been around for a very long time. And I've been doing it before it was cool. We had models which didn't work too well, and now we had to try it multiple times and try different prompts, try different engineering approaches. And this has been going on for a very long time. Now that you have ChatGPT, there's no conversation where you don't talk about ChatGPT. Like everybody is like, oh, did you see that? Did you see that prompt? How does it work? And also the most annoying thing I think here is like people send you these long emails and you know that this is from ChatGPT. Like, wow, you can. So now the brevity and the human touch has become such an important thing, right? If you see a brief email which has like really a good point of view, like this email has personality. It's written by a human, right? So that's the beauty of, I guess, the human touch we are missing now. I've written, like we talked about, a bunch of different books. The recent one just came out is about responsible AI. So support the starving authors, please buy the book. But let's just start with what generative AI is. So my talk is divided into 3 different quick segments because I only have 20 minutes, and these talks can take very long. Is to first talk about generative AI as its offering. The second is to talk about Microsoft's ecosystem around generative AI, along with other things we have. Like we have AWS, we have GCP, we have Azure. Like these are the 3 major hyperscalers. So whenever you're talking about generative AI, you talk about 3 major hyperscalers, AWS, GCP, and Azure. I'm biased toward Microsoft, but of course those 2 platforms are equally good. And then we have open source platforms, open source models such as Llama and Falcon and Bloom, and there's tons of other models on Hugging Face available, right? So these are the large language models which are used. I know some of you are like, what? It's a completely different vocabulary maybe, but we will try to keep it a little 100 level from generative AI perspective. Everybody knows from AI what AI is, what machine learning is, what deep learning is, and what is. So think about generative AI in the sense that it's an extension of deep learning. We have these slew of models called transformer models. And transformer models have come down to the part where they have actually created a new set of algorithms or models which can communicate with you in a very human-looking manner. But remember, these machines are not sentient, right? People start thinking they're sentient. They're not sentient. If I tell you the only thing they're doing is next token prediction, that's all they're doing. Right? It's predicting the next token in a very large hyperspace of words. So you have words like Paris and DC. They're very close together in a higher dimension because they are both capitals. So when it's predicting, like X is the capital of France, it's going to automatically know that to complete this sentence, I need Paris in there. So this is like a really quick introduction to how these models actually work. And now that you start thinking in the sense of how these models work, your ChatGPT prompts will automatically improve. Because you will try to add as much context in the asking and the keyword in the asking, which will make it better. So ChatGPT, everybody knows about it because it's so popular, but there's tons of other models available. Because this talk is more focused on OpenAI, I wanted to show some code, but I think there's a diverse audience. This is the ecosystem of Azure Azure AI with Microsoft. So Microsoft ecosystem is not just dependent. Oh, sorry. It's not just dependent on. I think our AI overlords are listening to us. I did not.
The mics are ran by AI.
Really nicely. Okay, that might be, yeah. So, is there AWS people in the room? So we have this entire ecosystem of AI right here. So for example, the bot service, the cognitive search, form recognizer, and each one of these have their implementation. Why? Because just generative AI is not going to solve your problem. And generative AI is not a replacement for the broader AI things I've just showed you earlier. Right? So generative AI is one component of an enterprise ecosystem. You need to have your bot service to be able to create chatbots. You have to have form recognizers to be able to automatically retrieve receipts and understand components from there and be able to extract the text out and store it in a database. So not all those components are going away. However, there is a significant impact of generative AI. And I don't like to throw around the word game changer, but seriously, I mean, you have heard it here. It is a game changer for a lot of things. And I'll talk about it quickly. So Azure OpenAI service. So most people tend to think as OpenAI. So let's establish a taxonomy over here. We have OpenAI, which is a company by Sam Altman. And then we have the Microsoft Azure OpenAI. That's an exclusive offering for Microsoft, from Microsoft by OpenAI. Now, OpenAI has capabilities available, but what's the difference between OpenAI and Azure OpenAI? The difference is enterprise scalability, security, reliability, and also bad pixelation. No, so imagine if I'm implementing, if I'm a CEO of a company and start having my employees giving access to ChatGPT. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it has a lot of things have possibly gone wrong. Number one, you must have heard of the lawyer who have created the citations for the cases and then submitted it to the court, and I think he almost got disbarred because of that, right? Because he came up with like fake citations, and those are called confabulations. So you can actually ask ChatGPT to come up with its own facts, and it will be like really sure that these facts are real. Right, so that's called confabulation or hallucination in reality. How do you control it? Well, the thing about generative AI models are they are called autoregressive models, and autoregressive models are by design made to hallucinate because we really like it, right? How it hallucinates is what we really like to see. Andreessen Horowitz said, hallucination is when we don't like the response, and creativity is when we love the response, right? So that's exactly what it is. So in this case, if you want to give your employees access and they are copying and pasting your technical design document or your private data over in ChatGPT, is it secure? Is it kept in for training? It's like, there's a lot of question marks there. So that's why Azure OpenAI, it gives you that enterprise security. It gives you the reliability, the SLAs, the ability to have like GDPR compliance and HIPAA compliance and PCI compliance and all the other good things which comes as an enterprise platform, because it is just a part of this entire ecosystem, right? So now OpenAI services here, but other cognitive services are already there. And these cognitive services already have the guardrails in place, already have the SLAs in place, all of those things, right? So OpenAI service is just one of those offerings. So that's what it does. So one thing, if you can take from this talk, is that it's not a good idea to post your company data on ChatGPT. So you can look it up. There is twice already have been leaks, which means the things you have been asking ChatGPT, other people have read. Now let that sink in. Now moving to this thing like the enterprise grade security with role-based access control. What does that mean? In simple terms, it means that if you are trying to use ChatGPT for your enterprise data, it's a good idea to have security where finance people cannot read the things which maybe HR has been asking and vice versa. So you can apply that for your own questioning and answering. All right, moving on. So what are the different Azure AI family of models? Most of the people have only heard of DaVinci or used DaVinci, right? It says GPT-4 models, but sorry, GPT-3 models. I need to update the slide. It says GPT-4 models are available now. DaVinci is the model which is the most expensive one and is the one which is like most people use. We don't always need the big model. So I guess one-liner for this slide is, bigger models are not always the best models. They could be really expensive. They're harder to execute. They're very expensive to run. The GPUs are really expensive right now. That's why you saw NVIDIA stock shot up like 200%. So it's a hard time to find GPUs. I was just talking to a person outside about we are trying to procure some H100s and A100 GPUs, and the timeline. Anybody wants to guess how long will it take? 52 weeks. To procure GPUs, which means that if you want to run these models, it's really hard to find this. So that's why Microsoft and other hyperscalers can provide that scale, which individual companies cannot. So these are the GPT-3 models for text generation. These are the models for code generation. What does that mean? Which means just like GPT can write text for you, it can also write code for you. Bad news for developers, right? I'm one of them. Now, what can GPT-3 do? You have seen GPT-3 models where they can write prompt and text. Code models, you can say, create a SQL query for me which can do this, and it will generate the SQL query, right? But you can also make it more complex. Imagine asking for it, giving it a function, and asking it to refactor it. Giving it a COBOL programmer who somebody wrote like 6 years ago or maybe 50 years ago, and then trying to understand it. You can just give it to your generative AI, GitHub Copilot, and ask him, can you explain this to me? Can you optimize this to me? Can you also find security flaws in this? So sometimes people think about like, what are the use cases of ChatGPT? So all the things I'm talking about, these are the real world use cases which are going to really change how fast you can implement, how fast your company can do digital transformation. What does that mean? I'm working with a company right now, and they have 20,000 plus traditional Teradata style scripts. Imagine migrating it to a modern platform like Databricks with PySpark. It's going to be really, really hard to do it manually. If you give it to somebody to do it, it's going to take them years. If they have to do all of those conversions, they have to handwrite it or use some sort of traditional tool. With generative AI, you can pretty much do the entire thing in maybe less than a week. Not just the code conversion, but also writing the unit test, the integration test, because that's really important. And don't let anybody let you believe that just like writing the code is going to be 100% done. No, it has to have a human in the loop. So another one of the keyword here is HITL, or human in the loop, which means human has to review whatever is coming out of this statement. And that's where we are right now, right? We don't have a perfect AI which can just go ahead and create this whole thing. I hope AI doesn't mind me saying that. But you have this thing gets created, and even complex code. Previously, we have tools like this, where you're like, hey, I had a tool back then when I can give it a database schema, it will generate SQL for me. But can it update the code on demand? Can it find security vulnerabilities? Can it tell you that there's a cross-site scripting injection attack in the code? Even if it can do this, can it also fix the code for you? Generative AI can do all of that. It's really magical. You have to see how GitHub and other co-pilots work. There are little short demos online from Microsoft Inspire conference, and those are like mind-blowing ones. All right, so these are some of the business problems people typically engage in. If you're thinking from an enterprise perspective, ChatGPT is all cool, but what are the things you want to implement? Refining and augmenting the LLMs. How you take large language models and train it for your use case, your company, whether it's retail, it's finance, or healthcare, whether it's, you have heard of Bloomberg GPT, right? They took that model and trained it on financial institutions' data. So now your LLM is more focused on the finance responses. Similarly, what if you don't want to store all the data in OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, or put it somewhere over there? How do you address that issue? You should address that by creating vector databases. How do you create the security and privacy around it so nothing actually gets stored or implemented without you knowing about it? What are the regulations and policies around it, right? Explainability of these models, right? Responsible execution of these models. Responsible AI is a really, really big issue because, you know, we have systemic biases, all of us, and those get into the AI systems. And that is a really, really bad thing. It's such a huge topic, I don't have time to actually address that, but it's really important, so I wanted to bring it up, that you have to have AI guardrails in place. If not, you can look up the horror story of Microsoft Tay. It was a chatbot, it was put out online, and like it was told to get trained from the sentiment of the Twitter user. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it's not a good idea to let Twitter users train an AI. And so within less than 24 hours, that chatbot became racist, homophobic, started all kinds of slurs. Yeah, I mean, it's just insane how it did that. So you have to make sure that there are guardrails around that, and some of the responses are really gnarly. That would require like a trigger warning, seriously, yeah. So all the things you are trying to put here, you saw that, right? It can take an hour to just go over individual points. Now, from a more technical perspective, what do these models do? There's a really excellent talk by Andre Karpathy. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's one of the biggest scientists in he was in Tesla, now he's back at OpenAI. He's one of the co-founders of OpenAI. And he did a talk called State of GPT. If any one of you is really interested in understanding the underpinnings of that, it's called State of GPT. It's available on YouTube, 1 hour, best use of your time. Please go ahead and check it out. Also, if some of you are interested in learning how to do prompt engineering as developers, look at Deep Learning AI. Free courses, an hour long by Andrew Ng. Andrew Ng, everybody knows Andrew Ng. He has done a really good job at those courses. So one of the things I like to do in my talks is to give you what are the next steps, what you can do to learn more things. This is a way of how your LLMs actually go. And when you are implementing an enterprise model, you take a base model, like an open source model or a GPT-4, and then train it and fine tune it on what's called a supervised fine-tuning model, so it is now going to work for your enterprise. So I do this all day for multiple different companies, and because the jargons and the communications and the use cases are quite different. Top 3 use cases for generative AI. Number 1, domain-specific retrieval augmented generation. So it's a mouthful. Retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, means, all it means is that you have a bunch of documents for your company. You want to apply ChatGPT style interface on top of it. You want to be able to communicate and understand that. You want to be able to ask a question like, what is my vacation policy, from your own documents, instead of calling HR or doing. You can also, like, you have tons of documents around your healthcare insurance, and you want to find out what is your copay, right? ChatGPT can tell you that information in comprehensive manner, and also tell you, not ChatGPT, I mean GPT LLMs can tell you those things, and you can get information from that and give you the citation. This is where I got this information from. So that's really important for you to be able to take the power of GPT and LLMs and apply it to your enterprise. So this is what it does. I think the MC is looking at me too. So you have like 3 minutes left. All right, so Azure OpenAI, there's a stick gonna come and pull me out. Azure OpenAI for enterprise. So these are the key capabilities you need to have: virtual networks, Azure Active Directory, encryption at rest, all of these like data security things, which most of the people who take it for granted, who are running a company, or the CISOs, or the people, that's not provided as out-of-the-box offering from OpenAI. But Azure OpenAI does give you all these capabilities in place. So for example, data sovereignty, right? Region-based. Any of you who works with companies in EU, you have to have data sovereignty. It has to be in a data center over there. Several times the data centers are not even available, where you can actually guarantee for OpenAI to be executing over there. It might actually round robin it to some other part of the world, which is not acceptable from an EU perspective. So these governance questions comes from like a real world implementation, right? Using ChatGPT is not a real world implementation of. There's a lot of nitty gritty and nuance which goes with implementing these solutions in real life. All right, next is responsible AI. So these are some of the principles. Look up that Microsoft responsible AI standards. These are some of the standards Microsoft follows. And of course, always the shameless plug here. Okay. Second use case I'll talk about quickly is the synthetic data generation. How many of you actually work on systems which require synthetic data? Synthetic data generation is a huge use case. And the reason is that whenever you try to generate data, test data, it's really hard to generate test data which is not John Doe 123 Main Street. Why? Because systems don't really understand the context. But now we have LLMs, large language models, which can understand the context and give you really good understanding of the data. So when you get the data, it's actually, if you generate, for example, healthcare claim data, it actually looks like healthcare claim data. It doesn't look like random stuff. So quickly for that, and the last thing I wanted to talk about is the AI pair programming, which is the GitHub Copilot. What it does, I don't know how many of you have actually used it, but if you have used it, great, awesome. And if you haven't used it, you would use it soon, because it's essentially gonna come for our jobs. The new versions are. Have you guys ever even seen the copilots, other copilots, Office copilots Microsoft have done? Oh, those are really cool. Yeah, Office 365 ones are really cool. So imagine you have a developer, you go to your developers and say, hey, can you create me a dashboard which compares the attrition rate of our company with another company, and then it does this, and then also takes the labor department data report and then map it out for me, and then show me the information. And they're like, yeah, come next month, right? Now you can actually write it down in English, saying this is exactly what I want to do, point to the data stores, bam. Yeah, like English is the new programming language. Guys, it's fascinating what it can do. Check out the GitHub Copilots for Office 365 by Microsoft. They are really cool. So I am running out of time here. And thank you very much for inviting me. I mean, this is a fascinating topic. There's a lot to talk about, and it's like it's just changing the whole thing. So just if you can take one thing from here is like, generative AI is here to stay. It's not a fad. It's not blockchain. Oh, sorry, not blockchain. It's not cryptocurrency. I said it's not cryptocurrency. It's different and it's amazing, and you guys should definitely spend time learning and see how it changes our industry. Thank you very much.